Hey everybody, this is Ghost with Blades and Blasters, coming at you with another character generation tutorial. This time for Stars Without Number. This is a system that we have played previously. I was playing Caleb in the game. It was the initial maiden session of it was ran by Cypher, where we escaped from a prison planet, and it has been our misadventures to try to get out of the system and away from the law. There's also another setting we're using this system for. It would be Cyberpunk 2049 or CP 2049, a solid state society. Newer game, again, being run by Cypher, which if you haven't watched it, I have to highly recommend it. It's one of the most detailed homebrew settings I've seen in quite some time, and everybody involved has put a lot of effort into their characters. So some of the most well put together roleplay we've had in quite some time. Obviously, not to disparage any other games, but I am a bit partial. But I digress. I'm going to talk about the system a bit more here. So the system is a Kevin Crawford production. As you see, science fiction role-playing game. It is not any kind of, high fantasy equivalent sci-fi. It can be, I suppose, but the combat system is very brutal. Combat is mainly run through d20 checks, and then there are skill tests that are typically 2d6 with target numbers. Characters do not start out super strong. You can be killed rather quickly. So it is very interesting in that sense, where the fact that it's so easy to be killed, and so easy to kill others, in fact, makes it a system where you got to try to think outside the box. I think making deadly combat enforces smarter role-playing decisions so that characters don't just straight up die. But again, it is written by Kevin Crawford, published by Sin Nomine. And again, I might be pronouncing that incorrectly, but and as you can see here, if you want to stop to look at all the information on those who contributed to this, you certainly can. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into character creation, which I enjoy quite a bit for this system, actually. So we're going to start from the top, and we're just going to make a simple character here. Again, if there are any requests for character types or builds specifically for this, I can definitely accommodate that. Before I start, I'm going to start with the same time-tested thing I say in every one of these, which is concept first, before we get mechanics going. So think about what you want to be, and make sure it's something you would enjoy playing. Make a character you want to play first and foremost. Again, my choice is always to optimize that as best as I can, so that I have a pretty strong character while also enjoying playing them. But if you just want to have a character that is, what you want them to be without them necessarily being optimal for the system, that's perfectly fine too. You're playing a role-playing game. You're not playing a competitive RPG or anything like that. So, with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do the step 1 of character generation. So for this, you roll your 6 attributes or assign them from an array. You do 3d6 6 times and assign them in order. Your 6 attributes are Strength, Dex, Con, Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma. That's going to look familiar to anybody who has touched pretty much any RPG, D&D particularly. You will notice that's pretty similar. And then they branch off into certain skills. You roll 3d6 6 times, assign them in order, or use an array of 14, 12, 11, 10, 9, 7. With how modifiers work, you can see right here, depending on your attribute score, you get modifiers on your actions, and this affects all of your skills tied to whatever that action is. What's interesting about Stars Without Number is that it's not necessarily one attribute tied to something. Like, remembering stuff is not necessarily always intelligence. For example, let's say that you have a character that is trying to talk someone down, but they're trying to be intimidating. You would roll perhaps Strength and Talk. Because you're trying to appear imposing, perhaps with physical strength. Whereas if you're trying to, talk someone down kind of a soothing way, more charismatic, well, makes sense. Charisma, trying to be charming. So that'd be charisma and talk. Talk being the skill, charisma being the attribute tied to it. As you can see, you get modifiers depending. The modifiers are not that grandiose, and you only can go up to a max of 18, which is a +2, which is pretty powerful in a 2d6 check. Most of the time, target number is 6, unless otherwise stated by GM. So, with this in mind, rolling is riskier, but also more rewarding. And this is just a character we're going to have fun with anyway to do the creation, so we'll go ahead and roll for it, so what kind of guy we get. So, see here I have my base guy. Nice picture by Cypher here. Looks a bit like the guy who played Sabretooth from the initial Wolverine Origins movie. but I digress. I'm going to go ahead and roll 3d6. It's assigned from top to bottom based on the sheet. Also, whoever's built this character sheet in roll 20, I don't have the name, but please post that if you are aware of it, because this person did a fantastic job for this sheet, and you'll see why as we get further in. So, 3d6, and then assign from top to bottom. So, strength, average, bad, okay. So is that 6? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. Yes, it is. So we're going to assign it top to bottom. So 10, 7, 7. Is that 10, 7, 7, 7? No, 12, 9, 13. Okay, so not very great. We did not get any +1 modifiers to anything, but that's okay. What we can do after we do that, if you roll 3d6, you can change one attribute of your choice to 14 if you wish to ensure your new adventure is gifted in at least one way. So we will go ahead and do that. I think I'm going to go with a route of not being completely useless in a fight, because -1 dex means he's not going to be very good. He's going to have a lower armor class for one, easier to hit. And -1 con is actually a negative to health. So I'm actually going to take con and put it to 14. So that way it gives me a +1 modifier instead. Makes the saving throw easier for physical. All the rest of this is not bad. At 14 is when you actually get mods. So if you look here, we're actually not far if we leveled up from being pretty decent at a couple different things here with charisma and intelligence. The rest of it's not great, but not bad, so it's pretty average so far. The next thing we'll do is mark down attribute modifiers. Again, this sheet's amazing, so no need to do that. Pick a background. So this is kind of who you are, what you used to do. And obviously, if I'm breezing over anything you have more questions about, I'm happy to answer them in the YouTube comments. We will see it and we will respond to it. I know I've been a bit lax on that before, but I will get out to it better this time. So let's see here. So with this stat line, I'm thinking let's build around our stats and then go from there. So, I mean, I can kind of do anything because I'm not particularly good at any particular, you know, thing. I would say something that involves intelligence and charisma, because those are the things that are probably going to get up to where they need to get, to where they actually provide bonuses way later. So let's look at stuff like that. So let's look at stuff that takes advantage of our intelligence and our charisma. Let's see. Noble could be one to consider. Scholar could also be one to consider. Politician. And keep in mind that there may be some ways to bump these stats a bit better. Noble could be good. I think Noble wouldn't necessarily make sense for this particular set. We're just making a character in general. So let's say let's go merchant. Let's have a bit of fun with that. So merchant. What does official do actually? Let's go ahead. Let's go merchant. Maybe it'll be a smuggler type here. Yeah. Go background as a merchant. Okay. So we picked merchants. Let's see what that means for picking background. So when you pick a background, you gain the skill listed on their background name at level 0, which equates to an ordinary working knowledge of it. So for merchant, what we have, we get trade at 0. So all skills start at -1, which means you lack training. When you hit 0, that means you no longer take a -1 modifier to rolling on the skill. So we bump trade 1 to 0. So now we don't take a penalty on it. Good. So now, what we do next after that, we have two options. you can either roll for additional skills or pick them. If you pick them, you choose 2 from the learning table, with the exception of entries that say any skill. You may not pick entries from the growth table if you decide to pick skills. So what they mean by that, if we're looking at it, growth is the D6 table here. The reason you can't pick any is because why wouldn't you just take 2 plus 2 mental attributes? These are attribute picks for growth. Then you got skill, any skill. Then learning, you pick any one of these 2. You could, if you wanted to. Just pick skills. Okay, that's not bad. That's an option. I like to roll for the skills, though. Reason being, because if you choose to roll for your skills, you can roll up to 3 times. This is in addition to taking your background skill. So, it's more beneficial to do this, I think, because that gives you at least 1 potential roll on the growth table, and then you can always roll on the other table and still get some skills for this. I like this to kind of pad out and, make your character more specialized for something mentally. So let's go ahead and roll for it. We're going to roll first on the growth table, which is going to be a D6. Let's go ahead and bring that up to see what we get. D6, okay. +1 to any stat. With that in mind, I think bumping charisma by 1 is going to be our best option, because now we get a +1 modifier to all charisma checks, which will help us with trade when we're trying to negotiate, barter, things like that. So I've done that. Now, I could do 2 D8s, which would be the learning table, could potentially learn more. But I want to risk it because if I get the bonus to intelligence here, that'd be pretty solid. So I'm going to roll a D6, for another D6 for growth, and +2 to a mental stat. Yes, I've got it. So intelligence is a mental stat, bump it 2. Now this character's looking a lot better. And then the last one, I'll do a D8, be safe, and go ahead and get another skill, because I think it's important to have a bit more skills than just trade. Oh, there we go. 5. No. So I have no, which is basically knowledge. Now it's at a 0. So I went from being a pretty kind of middle-of-the-road character to actually being a pretty solid character, and for all intents and purposes, from an intelligence and support perspective. So that's pretty good. I like that. So we're looking pretty good right now as kind of a support type character. So let's go ahead and take a look at what's next. We've rolled for our skills. Now we can choose our class. So there are 4 different classes. Well, technically 3, but the 4th one's kind of a mix of everything. So I'll go over those quickly. You've got 4 classes to choose from. The first one's Expert. Experts are your specialist, non-combat type specialists. They aren't very great at combat stats and fighting and things like that, but they have a lot of other uses, which can kind of depend on where you want to specialize. These are people who are good at certain tasks, or they can be all-arounders as well. So if we're looking at this, what they do, as far as their class abilities, you get a free level and a non-combat focus related to your background. So for a merchant, you'd probably take something like trade or something or another that makes sense. And that would be something you work out with GM. Once per scene, you reroll a failed skill check. That's pretty powerful, especially if you need to do something that's really dependent on you succeeding, or it could be bad. So that's pretty solid. And then when you advance an experience level, you gain a bonus skill point that can be spent on any non-combat, non-psychic skill. You can save this point to spend later. And then you roll a d6 plus con mod for hit points. This is the reason con mod's important. Is because it will help determine your max hit points and it affects your hit points for every successive level up as well. So if you have a negative mod on con, you'll never be able to get rid of that. Like, that would be a pain to have to deal with. So Constitution is definitely not something you should shirk on if you ever plan on being involved in combat ever. So experts, that's kind of expert in a nutshell. Psychics. This is kind of a strange class name, but they can be very powerful because the psychic abilities in this are very good. These are basically people who have ESP, they have the MES condition, which makes them kind of amenable to psychic training, reading that direct here. Psychics can basically do just weird shit that no other class can do. And there's a whole list of psychic information at the bottom, which I'm not going to go over right now because that would just make this video take ages. So we're probably going to do something that's either expert or warrior, but these are fun. These can be very fun and strong. Just to quickly breeze through class abilities, you can learn psychic disciplines and associated techniques. You can choose any 2 psychic skills as bonus skills. You can pick the same one twice to have level 1 proficiency and a free level 1 technique from that discipline. So you would basically get a level 1 technique as well as have psychic skills for whatever discipline there. And then you have an effort score, which is used to fuel psychic abilities. Maximum effort is equal to 1 plus your highest psychic skill plus the better of your wisdom or con mod. It can never be lower than 1. So that kind of helps you with your psychic rolls. Again, they have a d6 roll for their con modifier. Warrior. Whether it says warriors, I mean, that's pretty straightforward. These are the people who you want to get in there and fuck shit up. Basically, they're very strong. A lot of their abilities and attributes are geared towards them being combat focused, which can be very powerful in this game. Combat's very deadly, and having somebody who can actually come out on top and deal with situations in combat is pretty useful. So what they do, they get a free level in a combat-related focus associated with the background. Warriors are lucky in combat. You can either negate a successful attack roll against you entirely or turn a missed attack roll into a successful hit once per scene. That's very good. It can be used after the dice are rolled, but it cannot be used against like environmental damages or effects or hits in the vehicle. And then you gain 2 extra max hit points at each character level. So for this, if you're starting maximum hit points, you roll 1d6 plus 2, and then plus con mod. So for somebody with a plus 1 con mod, it would be 1d6 plus 3. And that, to see how level ups do, that continues to stack going forward. And I can show something related to level ups when it comes to health. And then Adventurer. What Adventurer does is it kind of merges 2 classes. If you feel like your person is not... If you feel like this going straight through one of these is not conducive to what you had in mind. So you could take like partial expert, partial warrior, or partial expert, partial psychic, or partial psychic, partial warrior. You know, you could do any one of those combinations, and you kind of get more watered down versions of the abilities they get. So something that's very powerful about Adventure is that you get 3 focuses, or 3 foci, which I will go over soon, and you will see why that's so powerful. That is, rules as written, you get 1 for, because you get it for being partial expert, partial warrior, and then also all PCs at level 1, when you're in character generation, get a focus. So this is going to be very powerful, and again, all these are watered down compared to their straight archetypes. So a partial expert, partial warrior, yeah, you might be better at combat than a warrior. Yeah, you might be better with expert stuff than a warrior would be. You might have more skills, but you're never going to be as strong as one or the other. So you got to really work your... If you decide to do this, you got to really work your advantages that you're going to have over those just straightforward classes. But adventurers, I think adventurers can really be the most powerful class, depending on how you build it. That said, all of them are good. I think all of these have their uses, and I don't think any one of them is stronger than the other. It really just depends on how you play your character. So what we're going to do for this guy to keep it simple is going to go expert. And the reason I'm going to do this is because I feel like if we're looking at my stats, I am not a combat character. I am not somebody who can throw down and get in there and fight because my dex is bad. And a lot of stars without number, even though there are melee weapons, and melee weapons can be good, a lot of it is going to be your dex. And with a -1 to all mods, that's really going to hurt me in combat with a lowered armor class, and it's really going to hurt me with trying to shoot back at people if I'm using a weapon. So I feel like this is definitely an expert type guy if I'm looking at all where his mods are. He can survive in combat, but he'd prefer not to be there. He'd prefer to be assisting. So, if I get expert, I get an extra focus, which I can double up on the same focus if it's my background. So I can have a very powerful early game character with a max level focus, because some of the focuses are very strong. I can reroll a failed skill check, and I get a bonus skill point that can be spent on any non-combat, non-psychic skill. And I believe that I get that at the beginning as well. So, what we're going to do first, though, we've got that set. We're going to go ahead and choose our focus first. So we get 2 focuses. One is whatever we want to pick for anything. The other one is related to our class, so it has to be non-combat, non-psychic. One does, and then the other one can be whatever we want. So let's go ahead and make sure we're still going in order for the character generation. Chosen our class, we're going to be an expert. Choose your foci. So now we choose foci. We're going to bring up the focus now. Go ahead and bring these bookmarks up because these are probably an easier way to navigate than flipping through a bunch of screens. So foci. So what foci are? These are sort of what you could equate to like perks or aptitudes, and they give benefits to your character. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. You get one for in-character generation for being a brand new player character, and this kind of represents your experiences thus far. You get another one for your class that you've picked. You know, I think that depends on what you pick. You get a combat-focused one, non-combat focused, or psychic-related stuff. So you get 2, but again, adventurers would get 3 skills. Depending on what they pick for, or 3 foci, I mean, depending on what they pick, based on what I'm looking at here. So, let's go ahead and let's get the expert one out of the way first. So let's go ahead and find that, because let's find something that kind of equates to him being a smuggler type guy. So I mean, diplomat could kind of be good, but honestly we're looking for tinker, not really. Connected could be something. Authority could be, maybe, but alert could also be something. Let's look through. So I'm not seeing anything right offhand that's good for us with being a smuggler. Except something maybe like... I think something that we have for talking. So maybe connect would be something good. For a smuggler, I think that we want someone who is connected, right? Because smugglers, they have their connections clearly with underworld and things like that. So I think connected's a good one. So let's look at connected. Connected's a bonus skill. If you spent at least a week in a not entirely hostile location, you have built a web of contacts willing to do favors for you that are no more than mildly illegal. You can call on one favor per game day, and the GM decides how far they'll go for you. So that can be pretty strong. It can help you get things done. And again, we've chosen expert here, so that shows our class ability. And this is what I like about the sheet. You pick something, plugs it in. Boom. So now, another thing I like about the sheet, choose your focus. Let's go ahead and find that. Connected, add, in. All plugged in already. All tied in. You can adjust the level so you remember. So we've got it. And what else we get with this focus is gain connect as a bonus skill, which means we get it at level 1. So connect, we've got another skill here, important. And if you're a smuggler, you got to be aware, man, because they'll catch you. So alert looks good. You're keenly aware of your surroundings and virtually impossible to take unaware. You have an instinctive alacrity of response, helps you act before the less wary person that moves. So you gain locus as a bonus, gain notice as a bonus skill. You cannot be surprised, nor can others use the execution attack option on you. So with this helps us gives us some survivability in combat, so we don't get absolutely crushed in the instances where we can just not avoid combat, where someone's looking for us or we get in a sticky situation. Now we can roll initiative twice, take the best result, helps us get out of the way or get to a better position so we can perhaps not be completely gunned down on turn 1 for being kind of flimsy. Added alert in, and of course we get noticed as a skill as well. So got a bunch of skills here that are at 0, which is good. We're kind of expanding our skill now. So connect, know, notice, trade, all those things will help us as the smuggler for the group. So we've got our focuses selected, or foci, pardon. 8 I'm going to skip because we're not going to have any alien or AI PCs right now. Choose one non-psychic skill of your choice to reflect your hero's outside interests, natural talents, hobby, expertise, or personal focus. For this, I think our option is going to be sneak, because if you're a smuggler, you got to be sneaky. You got to be used to trying to stick and move, sneak around through the crowds, and not get caught by the authorities. So we're going to add sneak as a skill here for 9. We haven't chosen the psychic class, so I'm not going to spend any time on that. Roll your maximum hit points on D6, adding your con mod. So we've got a 1d6, we got a con mod of 1. Rolled 3. That's about average, a little bit worse than average, but okay. So we rolled 3. Note down any base attack bonus you have. Going to be 0. We're not at a higher level yet. Choose an equipment package on page 25, or roll 2d6 to find out how many starting credits you have, which to buy gear. Nope, I don't think I want to roll for it, because I'd rather have something that guaranteed gives me armor in this case. Reason being, because we're going to need some kind of protection for this, but we also want to look at, you know, being able to make deals and have some trades happen here. So equipment packages, let's take a look. So there's your equipment package down at the bottom. We choose one, and you get everything in that. Or you can roll 2d6 times 100, I believe, and then just purchase stuff pre-game that you can afford. So let's look at what we can do. Thief's a potential. Gunslinger potentially. Soldier. No, Gunslinger I don't think would be good. Scout I don't think is good either. Let's go ahead and actually pick Civilian and then actually purchase some things. Because being a civilian gives us secure clothing, which is AC 13. It's not great, but it's. When I'm looking at other things here, there aren't that many better options. So secure clothing's fine. So let's go ahead and plug that in. So we've got secure clothing, and that's been added in. So again, our negative dex hurting us here. Our AC is 12. That's pretty bad, but you know, that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And then we get a compad. You can see what that does. And then we get 700 creds to spend. So let's go ahead and throw in our creds. And let's take a quick look. I don't want to spend too much time on gear, but I will look at general equipment for computing gear and communications to go ahead and get things that are important for us. So communications, compad, and translate to com server, field equipment. No, none of that seems to help. Tools and medical gear, maybe. Well, that would actually take a lot of time to look through. I'm sure we could find some toolkits and things like that that would help us find some information here, or be able to use certain things that would help us be better at smuggling. But with that said, I'm not going to spend too much more time on this. I'm going to go ahead and get some weapons, though, just because as a smuggler you got to be prepared. Sometimes things don't go your way. So I'm going to go ahead and get a medium. Let's see. Let's go kind of big, get a medium advanced weapons, maybe like a mono blade. Or no, mono. Let's go with a mono knife, something that's kind of advanced and do some damage here. And the reason that I want to get a melee weapon, even though I definitely don't want to be there, is they have something called shock damage. And in this system, shock damage will apply even if you miss. Shock damage looks at the armor class of the person you're hitting, and it applies to them if their armor class is at or under that AC. So what you see for a small advanced weapon, shock damage is done against armor class of 15 or below. And this includes a strength dex mod for your check. So let's go ahead and roll this here for weapons. I actually can't because I had to have a token. That's fine. Oh, here we go. Small advanced weapon. So as you can see, -2 mod to hit. Not very good in a d20. But we roll, and we're awful. So we would miss. But because it's a melee weapon, if our target had armor class of 15 or less, we would guaranteed do 1 damage. And if we hit, we'd guaranteed do 1 damage. So, pretty much, melee weapons are pretty powerful, even if you're not that good at fighting, because you can do guaranteed damage against people just from merit of engaging them in close combat and having the shock damage happen, even if you miss. So I always would say, even if your character's not good at melee, I would carry a melee weapon, because firing into a melee without the right foci, you will be at a huge disadvantage. You will, I think it's like a -4 or 5 penalty, and then even worse. This is even worse than if you're untrained at fighting with knives. So keep that in mind. So yeah, we'll do that, and then also to kind of make up for the fact that he's not very good at shooting, we can get some energy weapons, perhaps an energy pistol or las pistol, which we can afford. So I believe the advanced small weapon was 60 creds. So we're down to 640. And then we can easily afford... I could even go las rifle, want to go big, but that doesn't seem right. So we'll go with las pistol, which is a pretty solid choice. 200 creds, 10 round mag, 1d6, and it gets a +1 bonus to hit. So I'll go ahead, and that has to do with how accurately the lasers shoot out, apparently. Okay. But they do suffer negatives if you are fighting in a very particle dense environment like ash and matter and things like that make the beams worse and cuts down ranges. So that could be a -4 penalty to hit instead of +1. But we'll go ahead and roll with it because our guy's not very good at shooting things anyway. So we're going to spend the 200 creds, and we're going to go ahead and get a weapon. We're going to get a las pistol. Add in. So get, and it does fire off dex, or use strength off that, so it's not horrible. But now we look at weapons. Las pistol, see both -2 still. Is it inbuilt? It is. Good. Inbuilt for it. Even with a 20, we still roll pretty bad because of our negatives. But that being said, we've got that +1 from the weapon attack bonus for it being a laser pistol. So, that's one way to kind of make up for how terrible this guy is at fighting, is to use certain equipment so that anybody can shoot a laser pistol and keep it on target. So I'm not going to go too much further into items right now because I can't see anything right away that I would purchase as a smuggler. So I'm not going to worry about too much. Let's go ahead and go back up to see what we would do next. So, we've purchased our equipment. We're keeping the credits for now. We can always decide something later. Mark down total hit bonus. That's done. It's inbuilt with the sheet because the sheet's great. Damage to my weapon, done. Armor class, done. Saving throws, done. And then name and goal. So this is pretty much all the mechanical stuff for the character done with. Anything else now is just plugging things in, fluff, and getting it taken care of. So we can look this guy over. This would be our smuggler. He's not bad. I can go ahead and name him just for the sake of it. He's not bad. I mean, he's not going to do any major work in combat, but he's got a lot of skills that he can kind of work with. And, you know, roll with some bonuses for a level 1 character. And if he survives, we could actually get him to, you know, higher levels here to where he is always acting first in combat, and he'd be really useful in combat. Or we could bump up Connected, or we can get an entirely different foci to try to, you know, make him last a bit longer. We could also knock this negative dex mod out with a level up by bumping it up to 8. So I mean, this guy's got potential as a good support character. Not that he'll ever be used in one of our campaigns, unfortunately, but he's got some potential. And yeah, this is a first build for a expert, so it ended up being pretty good, despite not looking great to begin with. But that starts with number character generation. If you have any questions about, you know, specific things with classes or skills or how certain things interact with one another, you can definitely go over that with the system. But it's pretty simple. It is just 2d6 for any skills, plus mods, and then combat is a d20 plus mods, determine damage. And as you can see, kind of before we finish up here, to elaborate on how deadly combat can be, I have 3 hit points. If this is a laser pistol at me, that hits, that drops me. So level 1 characters can die very easily. Any level characters can die very easily depending on what you fight. So Stars Without Number is definitely a thinking man's game. Not that you can't win with combat if you really go hard in it, but you definitely want to leverage your skills to avoid it or engage from a position of strength, because it can be rough. But yeah, any other questions on character generation or any requests for certain character types? Again, always happy to help build characters with someone. It's kind of my thing here. I enjoy doing. Definitely leave a message in the comments or reach out to us. Thanks for your time. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.